Today we are revisiting this classic bourbon, Weller Antique 107, finding out if it's worth anything or not.
Welcome back to Stuff and Whiskey. I'm Erin.
I'm Josh, and today we are revisiting this classic right here. This is a series we do periodically on the channel where we go back in the catalog to bourbons or ryes that we've personally had previous relationships with, and we revisit them and see if they're worth anything. So for us, or for me specifically, this was a personal favorite. I've talked about it on the channel before, but I used to love this stuff. I used to be ready to blow my budget on buying this stuff at a markup, and then through a bunch of blind tastings, I found out I didn't really like it as much as I thought I did. You have some pretty strong opinions on wheated bourbons in general.
I don't know how I feel about this, but in general, I have strong opinions on wheated bourbons. Yeah,
we have not revisited this bottle in quite some time.
Yeah, I don't recall my thoughts on this specifically.
And I think Buffalo Trace's, they've ramped up production, so things are becoming a little bit more available, and that should continue to trend in the right direction. This is now a $65-ish bottle at suggested retail price. Okay. A lot of stores mark it up to around $100, if not a little bit more than that. We will be talking about it in the context of both the suggested retail price and a marked up price.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and get this on the nose and see what we're working with.
I'm getting major Granny Smith apple vibes.
Oh, it's interesting you should say that, because I'm getting like a green Jolly Rancher, which I think is...
Which is apple.
It's apple, but it's like that sugary candy apple type of note. I don't remember ever getting that on Weller Antique. I am saying I'm getting some proof on the nose, which is unexpected.
Straight up Granny Smith. I don't know. It's like there's a tartness to the sweetness.
Yeah, it's like sweet tart sweetness.
It's not sweet tarts though.
No, the chewy sweet tarts, not the dusty dry sweet tarts.
It's Granny Smith apple.
All right, it's Granny Smith for her. It's chewy sweet tarts for me. It's like the red and the purple and the green chewy sweet tart. Leave the blue one out. The blue does not fit in here, but
Correct.
this is red, purple, and green chewy sweet tarts on the nose. To me, let's get it on the palate.
Wow, what's the proof on this?
107.
Have I historically liked this?
I don't know.
I like this.
Okay. No, so you're not getting your typical wheat or funk on this?
No, I'm getting, so I got Granny Smith apple very specifically on the nose, but I got your sweet tarts on the palate.
Yeah.
It's still tart, but it has more sweetness on the palate, but it's not too sweet. And that also, I feel like a proof. Like there's some proof.
So that's what surprised me. On the nose, I thought it was relatively simple and lacking complexity.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the palate's too different, but what surprised me on that first sip was the proof spice from it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this is a favorite of a lot of people in the Weller line, because some of the other Weller expressions are lower proof, and because of the wheated bourbon profile, they drink really soft. So if you like really soft, generally sweet bourbon, you may not like this.
This ain't that.
It's coming through with some punch.
Yeah, I like the punch. It's a nice punch. Yeah. It's like a very pleasant punch.
Yeah, we do tend to like more flavorful pours as long as they're not like crazy unbalanced. But given the choice between two pours that are both relatively balanced, one being lower proof, one being higher proof, we tend to take the higher proof one on a personal preference because we like that extra flavor that it brings. I need to take another sip of this before I can say much, because it kind of surprised me with how much oomph it came through with.
Yeah, same. And while you're sipping that, I went back on the nose and smelled it again after sipping it. And the second time I went back to the nose, I actually got kind of a sweet tea vibe on the nose, which was surprising because the tartness was gone on the nose. It still was evident on the palate. So that's interesting how after tasting it, the nose changed.
Yeah, second sip in, and it's all coming back to me now, Cue the Celine.
It's all coming back to me now.
Well, are you going to keep going? Or?
I don't know the words. Flashes of light. There are things I'd never do again, but then they'd always seem right. I can't. You don't want me to go up high. Yeah. It's not pleasant at all for anyone, so I'll stop.
This is probably pleasant for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason it's kind of a favorite in the lineup, and I'm remembering now why I used to like it so much. Now, to be clear, I put this in tons of blinds. It doesn't typically win out over a lot of other things. Like a rye-based bourbon, I tend to like the extra flavor punch that those can bring over a wheated profile.
Yeah.
But just drinking this in a vacuum by itself, I'm not mad at it at suggested retail price.
Yeah.
I think for a long time I was, because it used to be $50.
Gotcha.
And in some markets even cheaper than that. And then
Gotcha.
back in the day it was obviously even cheaper, but it went from like 50 to 65 in our market.
Okay.
It's always been difficult to find for the last handful of years. You know, it's a good quality product. I don't want to hype it up and say that it's the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, and if it's hard to
But it's
find,
good.
I would say it is good. I do enjoy it. If it was easy to find and $65, I'd be a buy all day.
I would keep a bottle around to enjoy. For sure.
If, like you say, it's hard to find, there are other bottles that I like just as well as this that would be easier to find, that I would just get those.
Yeah. I would say if you ran across this in a store that's selling one for like $99.99 and you've never tried it before and you don't have any restaurants or bars near you that might have this in stock where you could go pay for a pour, and you're willing to gamble with $100 and not knowing what this tastes like, I would maybe consider spending that once, but I would also really encourage you to spend like $15, go on Amazon, get some Boston Round sample jars like we use over here on the channel, and put this in some blind head-to-heads against some other things and just see if it stacks up for you, because
When you don't know that you're drinking it.
right,
Yeah.
because this typically doesn't blind super well for me. It kind of gets washed out against other more flavorful pours.
I can see that, yeah.
It's not particularly complex. It's just kind of what it is, which is generally sweet and pretty good. It's kind of like the Goldilocks, right? Like, it's not too hot, it's not too cold,
Yeah.
it's not too flavorful, it's not
Which-
too little flavor.
Which sometimes that's all I want.
yeah,
So it just depends, I think, on what you prefer.
yeah. I definitely would keep a bottle of this around at $65. I mean, everything's more expensive these days, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and we don't ever want to encourage people to spend more money than what something should cost.
Or more money than you're comfortable spending.
Right.
Because everyone has different budgets, different price points, different, more disposable income, less disposable income.
Yeah. I think, that's kind of driving towards the point
Yeah.
I was kind of trying to wrap my head around, which is, keep in mind, we are talking about this, we are enjoying this, but this is not even close to the best whiskey we've had. It's probably not even in the top 50 or 100 whiskeys we've had.
Yeah.
It's just really good, classic, right down home plate bourbon.
Yep.
If you can get your hands on it, it's worth trying, I think. I mean, that's why we do these Classics Revisited series, because we haven't tried this in a while, wanted to revisit it and see how it hit us, knowing that we're drinking it now with all the perspective that we've gleaned from all the blind tastings that we've done here on the channel over the years. And I think Weller Antique 107 does hold its own.
I agree.
All right. If you think this kind of video is this type of thing that you want to get in your inbox or in your YouTube feed or wherever you get things that happen over here,
Okay, millennial.
subscribe. Okay, boomer. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave some comments below as to what you think about this. I'm actually kind of curious about public opinion, because this really has been, not a lot of people talk about Weller Antique these days, it seems like, because it's just so hard to find.
Yeah,
So
fair.
curious what you guys think down below. You'll also find a link to our Patreon community down there. It's the best dang whiskey community on planet Earth. You guys are going to hear me say that a lot this year, because I'm tired of hiding it. I'm ready to brag on our community.
We have a
It's-
great Patreon
It is
community.
amazing. I mean, if you want a sample of this, you can for sure find somebody that's willing to share some of it
Yeah.
on our
I think
Patreon community.
our Patreon is the most generous group of people I've ever met.
Well, and it's because they prioritize people over bottles.
Yeah.
The whiskey is just what brings us together, but the community and the relationships are what it's really all about
Yeah.
for the people that are part of our community. So if that's you, think about joining in. You can also get our barrel picks over there, tune in on our live streams, our private Patreon live streams, and hit that bell down there. We do a YouTube live stream publicly once a month as well. That bell will help you know when we're going live.
Absolutely. That's it for today. Be good to each other, and until next time,
Cheers.
cheers.